Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming. In the 2017 speech from the throne, the government undertook to conduct a thorough review of transportation and to produce a green paper on the future of transport that will provide various options and modernization, which also takes into account the needs of the differently abled. Government recognizes that technology is modernizing transportation globally, and that Bermuda must examine those trends when taking into account the future of public and private transportation. Last Friday, I was very pleased to lay the 2019 Transport Green Paper before the House of Assembly, and can say that the document has caused us in the Ministry of Transport and Tourism to reevaluate our short and long-term goals over the next 5, 10, and 20 years, and focus on the future by making the necessary changes required to modernize our transportation infrastructure. This includes setting new goals and priorities. Today, I will expand on some of the initiatives that we are working on. One of the main issues of concern for many members of the public and our visitors is the reliability of taxis, especially late afternoons and into the night. Under the Motor Taxi Special Permit Act 1970, I have the authority to grant up to 88 special taxi permits, and I plan to exercise this law. In the first instance, and as a means to monitor and test the initiative, an initial 20 permits will be offered to first-time taxi owners to fill the gap in taxi service levels. I will review the taxi industry on a regular basis to determine if the additional permits are required, and if so, how many and when. These special permit holders will only be allowed on the road between 3 p.m. and 6 a.m. Monday through Sunday, including holidays, and at the current taxi rates. The fee for a special permit is under consideration, but it is anticipated to be $2,000 for a 4-seat taxi and $4,000 for a 7-seat taxi, and the statutory specifications for a taxi will also apply. To identify these special permit holders and to ensure they abide by taxi regulations, the vehicles will have a unique color license plate. We expect this initiative to get underway shortly, and any person who has a valid driver's license may apply to the Bermuda Public Service Vehicle Licensing Board, care of the Director of TCD. Also, the public will be aware of the challenges with the public transportation in Bermuda, in particular, the bus service. The DPT recently concluded a request for information for new buses and is in the process of preparing a request for proposal. We are taking this opportunity to review the bus market and available vehicle types that meet Bermuda's needs, as well as the international public transportation standards. In the interim, and to provide some relief to the bus service, the ministry will increase the maximum number of minibuses allowed to operate to 180, which equates to about 6,000 seats. Of this number, 20 minibuses will be wheelchair accessible with a lift or a ramp. The issue of safety when using Bermuda's roads is of the utmost concern to many. To address this, the ministry has been working to improve the Project RIDE training program, and as of this month, the road safety team has accomplished a number of tasks. Instructors have completed the last stage of a 3-tier recertification. The student workbook is in full utilization. No entry signs were created and are placed at the entrance of the course during practice to maintain a sterile environment. Incident reports were created to be used in the event of cycle damage, theft, and the like. Flashlight and container spotlights were purchased to the aid with nighttime instruction. An official examination procedures document was created for testing of Project RIDE candidates. And I am also happy to announce that in the first 4 months of the year, a total of 160 students have successfully completed the program, and we are working on expanding the program into the schools by creating a P5 school curriculum. We are also working on having an additional location for practice course in Devonshire. This is presently being mapped out by Works and Engineering. The Project Ride curriculum is being reviewed and redrafted with a view to making improvements to it, and a donation of inoperable cycles to public senior schools to assist with the training of students in motor mechanics is also planned. On the topic of alternative powered vehicles, the government of Bermuda will set a goal date for Bermuda to go green by eliminating the importation of fossil fuel reliant vehicles, cars, bikes, and trucks, recognizing the government ought to lead by example with respect to its own fleet of vehicles. Through to the end of this year, the ministry will assess the impact of rental minicars on the island's infrastructure, and depending on the outcome of the assessment, increase the number of rental minicars from the existing number of 300 up to a maximum of 500. As we continue implementing many of the hundreds of recommendations offered over the consultation period, I want to thank all of our stakeholders, who included residents, students, managers within public authorities, business groups, visitors, all for their contributions. I want the public to know that many more suggestions will be taken into consideration as we move public policy forward. While we in the government are doing our part, I want to thank and recognize the Bermuda Road Safety Council and the Drive for Change and Peace of the Rock campaigners and all the other community groups and stakeholders that are working to improving driving standards in Bermuda. In closing, technology is changing very quickly, and we must be able to adjust accordingly and prepare for the future. Thank you.
Okay, we will now take questions from the media.
Anybody else? Yes, I have a few.
Good afternoon. Thank
Good
you
afternoon.
very much. May I just check, you talked about the special taxi permits and starting out with 20. I guess there was probably some consultation with members of the taxi industry prior to reaching that figure. Maybe you could just tell us about that, if there was consultation and what sort of feedback the taxi drivers gave you to that.
I have had consultation with many taxi drivers, the taxi associations, and we had some robust conversations. There have been some suggestions that they're not needed. There have been other suggestions that they're overdue. The decision that I took was to issue 20 of those, and then we'll monitor and we'll assess, and then we'll make decisions going forward whether or not we increase, leave the same, and or not renew in 5 years' time.
And just with regards to the vehicles, any date in mind as to when we can expect this going green to happen? That sort of time limit that you're thinking about?
I do, but I'd like to sit on that for just a bit. But I would certainly think that is something that shouldn't be too far off the announcement stage.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. DeSilva.
Good afternoon, Sierra.
I noticed you talked about taxi permits, new permits, and it's at a lesser cost. The current permits are how much a piece?
103,000.
And you also have TCD inspectors who are supposed to say, monitor the fact that the required law is what? Taxis be on the road X hours a day.
Correct.
Yes. But you and I both know there are taxis parked all day and not being enforced. So what do you say about enforcement?
Well, I don't know if I agree with you, Ciola, that they're parked all day, but I think you and I and everyone else knows that there are many taxi drivers that do not adhere to the...
So my question is, what are you doing or your inspectors doing about them?
Well, the challenge has been in the past about the reporting and the tracking of data. I'm happy to tell you that we are now tracking the data. Finally. And, look forward to watch that. All I'm going to say is watch that space going forward.
So with regards to the increase in minibuses, are you aware that minibus drivers already feel that there's enough buses on the road and they're not being used adequately and they're running into real interference from VEDCO?
Well, let me say this. Because someone did say to me recently that the mini buses are having a challenge getting work. My answer to that is I have sitting on my desk 65 minibus applications for 95 buses. Whilst you will know that I just announced that we're going to cap it at 180 for now, I would like to think that that is not a true statement, and time will tell.
But you would know when your former predecessor and premier discussed we're going to do more taxis and minibuses, it met with a lot of resistance.
Well, I'm not sure if I can recall that, but I'll tell you what. We are moving ahead with the additional 20 special taxi permits, and we have already, you may know, that a couple of months ago I actually gave permission for 20 of the minibus applications we had that had the wheelchair accessible capability. So we did that, and I think out of the 20 we gave permission to, I think 14 have taken them up so far.
Okay, and from policy point of view, because I heard you state something about road safety and the Piece of the Rock. For the record, is the ministry's road safety campaign only geared for Piece of the Rock and the Royal Gazette Driving for Change? Because the people that matter are not receiving that campaign. And that's something I've written you about and have yet to receive an answer.
Well, first of all, Ciola, I always answer you. So if I haven't quite answered you the way you would like, I would resend that to me.
Well,
but let me answer your question.
No, but before you do that, I hear road safety campaign on various other mediums, and I see it in the Gazette Daily. The people you need to reach are not reading that.
Right.
So where's the program?
Well, there's not only in the newspaper, it's also been scattered all over the radio stations as well as TV. So what you're trying to say
I'm
is...
saying a lot of your viewers don't do that.
What you're trying to say is that some of our viewers need to,
Well,
our road safety people should talk to Ciola Wilson about maybe getting to some of her.
Well, Ciola's been talking to them and falling on deaf ears. But with regards to your campaign, and I know we have a road traffic fatality problem, but I noticed that you mentioned Project Ride, which is a good thing. We should start with the youth. But the men and women killing themselves on the road are not these young people. They're habitual bad drivers who are already in their sink. And the ones that could be spreading that message are not spreading it. So what's your position?
Actually, you know what? It's very interesting you say that, Ciola, because you must have a bug in my office.
Probably.
Yeah. And if you do, you're getting some good information.
Always.
Right. Because I'll tell you what, you might recall Dr. Brown saying some time ago when he was minister, and how far back was that? He said that a lot of our deaths are not our teenagers.
No, they're not.
The people like me who came up, pack racing,
driving drunk,
pack racing, and doing a whole lot of things on our
Right.
bikes, right? Because it seems to me like what the Road Safety Council are doing with our younger people, and some might say that statistics tell you otherwise, that they may not be killing themselves, but they do have road accidents, and a lot of those things you don't hear about. But the really bad habits do seem to be coming from some of our older people. So the one of the things that I had mentioned to the chairman was that, maybe we need to start focusing on some of our 45 and 50-year-olds.
My last question would be actually, I'll wait, but I'll talk to you after.
Okay.
I don't want to give that one away. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
All right, do we have any further questions from the media?
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.